me introduce myself properly. I'm an engineer, and that's the first thing. Then under my engineering, I am an academic. I've been working in academia now for nearly 42 years. I've taught in 115 universities, including the 2 universities in Zambia, UNZA and CBU, and European and United States universities. I've advised governments, and I'll tell you exactly which governments I've advised in the world, not only in this particular part of the world. I'm a consultant, because that's what I do. OVIV Engineering Division is actually a consultancy firm. It's part of OVIV, and we do consulting within that particular part. And most of our work is governed around space, air vehicles, road vehicles, and railway vehicles. So those are the areas where we do consultancy in designing and developing and achieving and putting all those products on the road or in the air or in space. I'm a designer. I do design a lot of things. I put a lot of patents, and I do make sure that when I design I look at it in terms of transportation machinery. So what we're going to do today is I'll look at entrepreneur, and I'm also a manufacturer. And I manufacture OVIV vehicles. One of the minibuses, 2 minibuses are here actually in Lusaka. You can see them, you can touch them, you can visualize. I've implemented a lot of new technology on those buses. Why I did that is because I was asked by the government, and I'll come to that topic later on. So this is exactly who I am as an engineer. But I wear different bonnets in order to make sure that I deliver in every particular part. But that synergy which I bring together is the one which I want to deliver to you and share to you. When I'm presenting topics of this nature, usually I've got a hall full of white faces, and I'm the only black person standing and teaching and giving all this information. So to me, this is a little bit of a change to see my fellow countrymen sitting there and listening to me. Usually it's the white people who listen to me and they implement these things. And I would like you as well to do that here. So this is me. I founded the International Journal of Trustworthiness in 1996 and the editor-in-chief. At the same time, what this does, it gives the opportunity for all the research in the world to actually put their research activities and outputs into that journal. So it is the original journal which exists in the world, and you can actually Google it. I'm also a founder of the Automotive and Aerospace Research Group, which specifically was there to deliver products for industry from the university laboratories. So Clive Group Consultants, which was founded in 1999 to 2014, and I dissolved this particular part of the company and merged it into iCrush. Then after that, it came into OVIV, which was founded in 2017. And OVIV was founded in 2017 for a simple reason. I was called by the Ministry of Transport here in Zambia to say, please, can you come and help us to actually bring new transportation systems? Because our minibuses are killing people. I went away, I designed the OVIV minibus, which you can see here in Zambia. It's there, on the road. Go and look at it at Chris Motors, just near Radisson Blue. It's parked there, and this particular minibus here is the birth of the Ministry of Transport in those days. But when I came to it, they failed to implement it. And I'll be coming to those things of implementation, because I think we've got a problem in Zambia for implementation. These are the vehicles I designed, and these are the vehicles which we manufacture as OVIV. Last time when I came to Zambia, I went to bring the medics to the Ministry of Health, but they didn't buy my vehicle, but they went to buy the 280,000 product. Mine is 65,000. So you can see where we are not thinking of exactly how we can do it. Yeah. So from there, this is a much better one. Then I should be short. So from there, these are the type of vehicles which we manufacture. And as you can see, we have people carriers, which are shuttle, Maze Runner, which is a 16-seater, 22-seater, and these are executive vehicles. Then we've got the Round Guard, which is really a police vehicle, and this is ambulance, and the two vehicles which are mainly for dry cargo and the refrigeration. So these are the vehicles which we manufacture for Atovi. Despite that we manufacture these vehicles, I would like to show you some of the examples I've designed in the world so that you can see yourself. And these vehicles are here in Lusaka, and many of you might own them. The Ford Fiesta. I designed the Ford Fiesta many years ago, and the Ford Fiesta is here in Lusaka. People can drive it. I tested it, and here I'm actually with the vice president of Ford, testing it in order to ascertain certain particular values and to see that it works. And as you can see, I'm actually giving them instructions to see if my design actually performs exactly to the product which we are actually putting together. And this is one of the vehicles which we had designed. Let's look at the Airbus, the 380. All the materials which you see on the 380 were tested at our laboratory. We went on to put the thing together and delivered the aircraft, and now you can fly on it around the world. This is a very interesting project which we have. This is celebrating the landing of the Curiosity rover on Mars, and my contribution to that particular project is actually the landing gear. If you look at the Mars lander, you have a landing gear which actually has to absorb certain particular kinetic energy. And within that particular kinetic energy, you make sure that all the instrumentation which are on board must be kept in motion and must be well working. So it was a tricky design, which of course I achieved to develop that particular. And as you can see here, we are actually at NASA celebrating that particular landing. I'm advising to the UK government. I'm the advisor, and I used to advise Terry for the particular area of expertise, which is education. Then when she moved, Kelly moved from education to Ministry of Transport, I also advisor on the transportation systems. So this advisory body in aerospace and in the government, UK government, is extremely important for me to pass my knowledge to other parts of the country for their utilization. I've advised the European Union, and the European Union, I was representing United Kingdom as the chief advisor in transportation safety. Many of the things which you do today in your car, for example, you've got airbags in your car, you've got seat belts in your car as standard. It's me who introduced them in the European Union, and then they became worldwide. So you can see that all that work which was done by different universities was actually implemented into the legislation of the European Union, and then from there it was distributed in different particular parts of the world. So this is where I am actually as one of the advisors. You can see me there, one of the advisors to this gentleman here who is actually the commissioner for transport. And these are the people who work for me. I've also advised the Republic of China, and I still continue advising the Republic of China. I'm also a visiting professor to universities in China. The Chinese are very difficult people. They cannot take anybody who does not understand anything. They are not for numbers, they are for brains. So it was, when I was actually taken on, I was extremely pleased to see that everything which I was doing is actually good. So in the United States advisory, we have advised them in terms of the different policies which they can take to achieve certain particular transportation systems. So this has worked extremely well in this particular part of the world. And I would have to bring that to Zambia. And you can, guess what? The only country I've never advised is this. Can you imagine? Everybody in the world utilizes my technology, utilizes my ideas, utilizes my thing, utilizes my knowledge, utilizes everything. But I've never been called by this country to come and help. Isn't it saddening? Very sad. I was born here in Mufulira. And the things which I know can be useful to this particular country in order to actually develop it. So what I'm trying to say here is we want to move on. But they tried in 2013. They invited me on false pretense. And I'll tell you why. I came in, I developed the rail system. I went away using my own money under Clive Incorporation Limited to actually design the entire rail system for entire Zambia in 4 phases. What did I think they were going to implement? No, they were chewing money on the side. They were chewing money. And hence, this has never been developed. We think that in the future, if you young people who are sitting here as good engineers, you can go back to this and start implementing. I hear quite a lot of Zambians. In fact, perhaps it's very sad. They said, oh, Zambia is land-linked. No, Zambia is not land-linked. Zambia is landlocked. To be land-linked in Zambia, you must actually be positioned on where you are exposed to the sea. Geologically, it takes billions of years to move away from landlocked country. But economically, you can land-link yourself. And Zambia today is not even economically land-linked. Because if you look at the way it goes out, they are all rudimental roads. No rail system, nothing. In fact, when you go to, I wanted to find out if something has improved since I was here last time. And only to find that even this one from the Copper Belt to here is not functioning. The rail is like that, zigzag. Can you understand on a zigzag line? It's sad, extremely sad. And this is what we did. I designed this in 2013. I went on also to design the rail vehicle. All this for free. Using my own resources, using my own knowledge, and brought it to ZR for free. And has it been implemented? No, it's a failure. The product is undelivered. So these are the problems I'm talking about. We are not concentrating on reality. We must start moving on and making sure that we implement some of the things which we do. In 2015, they invited me again. After 2013, I went away. 2015, they invited me again. And I came in, I developed the Lusaka tramway system. Has it been implemented? No. Here it is. Many of you are sitting here, you even recognize the place where you are on this particular road. They came to me and said, we want to decongest Lusaka. I said, oh, fair enough, that's a very good idea, because I can do it for you. I went away in 2015, and I designed the whole Lusaka detention system. And no implementation has occurred up to today. What a waste of resources. I also went on to actually design the Chirwa. And when I designed the Chirwa, exactly the same time in 2016, I thought they were going to go this in the second phase, but nothing happened. So this implementation capability and everything else which is going along has got to be understood that we need to make sure we start working and running. So today, let me begin my presentation by saying I'm going to wear the hat of an entrepreneur. That's what I'll be talking about today. There will be a lot of economics, a lot of sciences, and a lot of design and manufacturing. So entrepreneurship is the key today. We need to develop this country together. As engineers, we must make sure that we start working. And that working capability needs to be done today. So this is where we are. I will start first of all by talking about job creation. I've been pushing this in this country for 45 years. 45 years. And I'll tell you where I started from. I remember when Professor Mundia Muya published the EIZ paper, he also went on to say that the key to employment and wealth creation is you have to innovate and become productive, because that's exactly what it is. You cannot have employment if there's no productivity and there's no what? Innovation. All these tools actually create the capability of making sure that we move forward and we start delivering on those particular people. Then in 2015, I was also called by EIZ to become the chair, and we presented the industrialization blueprint, which is sitting in EIZ. This pains me a lot. Why? Because I spent a lot of time on that. And why? Because we, EIZ, had to spend money. We hired an aircraft to go to where? To go to forward, to go and meet the president and present this particular document here, thinking that they're going to implement it. We wasted our resources. In fact, we must claim that money from the government, as he has said. I'm telling you. Then, let me tell you one thing, which is extremely important, and listen to this. I'm telling you the truth. Despite all the effort, politicians have never gathered courage to move into this direction, into value addition. 21st century is different. We need to move fast, otherwise we will be colonized the second time. And colonization has already begun. If you are still thinking that you are free people, you are not. You and I are being colonized, and the colonization is continuing at a very high pace. Very soon, you'll find that we'll be losing everything which we have. So to do that, let me go to the background, because I believe in figures. Figures tell the entire story of what we can do and what we can achieve. So I went to pick up this document here by the Commissioner General, which gives the analysis of the tax revenue collected over a certain period of time. So we can calculate the compound annual gross revenue. So from there, we can actually look at it and make sure that we have it correct. Now, let's move on and see this period. Just come here. This is the revenue collected by ZRA. Now, if we look at this curve here, you'll be surprised. I want to have this curve inverted, to have the green at the top, and that to be called the mines, and to have the mines at the bottom, and that to be called the people of Zambia. These people here are ripping us off. They're getting nothing. Totally nothing. These are the figures from there. Look at you. Everybody sitting here who are working in Zambia, you are paying this colossal amount in taxes for the little money you get. And hence, the mines themselves are paying very little. And I'll show you why they're paying very little. And that's what we'll be talking about here. In 2007, I met President Mwanawasa in London. He came with the current Minister of Finance. He was then the economic advisor to His Excellency Mwanawasa. It's me who forced him so that he can have windfall tax. I told him, I gave him all the figures which I had, and I said, please, look at this graph here. These are the mines. Before that, from £2 billion or $2 billion of businesses, we were getting only 54 million. How can you run a country like that? Look, these are the figures here. I'm not telling something which I don't know. Here they are, from ZRA. So I said, listen to me. The mines are getting too much money out of this country. What we need to do ourselves is to put a windfall tax. He argued for a long time, but in the end he understood what I was talking about. Because the finance minister left the room, and I convinced him. Because the financial sector was saying, oh, Zambia is growing by 6%. Oh, Zambia is growing by 6%. But I'll tell you why that 6% is not reality. So this is what we have. And we created that windfall tax. He invited me after that when they collected that money to State House. And thanked me for giving him that idea. In 2008, again, this is his office at State House. And he congratulated me on that. If I did not do that today, this money won't be here. But I've been so disappointed. Immediately after that, when he passed away, we went back to status quo. We stopped collecting money from these mines. It's very sad. If he was around, perhaps we would have continued collecting money from these mines. So these are the problems which we have. Now look at this curve. Look at this curve. Let me explain to you what he's talking about. In fact, I'm so disappointed with many of economists in this country. Are they half-baked? Or they cannot understand figures? What is happening with the economists in Zambia? All these figures are presented here. Nobody has done analysis of these figures. Now let me talk analysis with you on these figures. This is what we have. If you look at this, the blue type of these columns, all that is what we call GDP. That's per capita. So they are representing per capita. And if you look at the red line, it's the price of copper. Now, you might be thinking and say, okay, when the price of copper goes up and so on, we are going to have a good life because we are going to have more money and so on and so forth. But if you look at this GDP here, I'll just concentrate on forget about this particular line here. I'll concentrate on this part here, which many of you will associate with. If we look at this, you are saying that, oh, the GDP is going high to about 5-6% on average. But that GDP which is presented here is not real. It's fake. And I'll tell you why it's fake. If you look at it, many of these GDP calculated here are not in goods. Tell me, how many goods have we made in Zambia since 2000 up to 2010? Different goods. We've got maize which is rotting in the field. We've got in the sacks in the warehouses. We are not implementing. We are not. So all that is services, and these services are not ours. Are not for us Zambians. These services here, which we count here, are South Africans. Are South Africans. And we count them, their money, twice. They count here, then they go to South Africa, they count. And our GDP here, we say is growing at 6%. Where? Just go to Bauleni or go to Masaiti or go to Kanyama or go to all these places and go other places. But the copper belt. My hometown of Fulera, I can't say it's growing at 6%. It's dying. So these are the things which I'm talking about. These figures here, you see that GDP? It should be in the minus. Because it's not our money. We are counting GDP of somebody else. And I'll tell you why GDP is not a good index to count in terms of income generation. Let's look at this figure. This was done by Sikama in 2014. If you look here, you see that over the years, we've been losing ground in terms of how much copper we produce with reference to the world production. We were very good before when we were privatized. Then from there we started going down because of equipment and so on, but we were still doing pretty well. But since we privatized again, we are seeing that our curve for copper production and the percentage is not changing. It's actually flat, as you can see. It's flat. While copper production is going up. So what's happening? The reason is that those markets we lost when we were going down, we have not recovered them. That's what it is. We have not recovered them. So if somebody was buying sweets or copper or anything from you, and you lose that particular market due to the fact that you've gone a little bit down on the income to buy the product, then it's extremely difficult to recover that market. And that's what has happened. The world production has gone up, but we are flat. We are not increasing our share of the market, in other words. And this is extremely important, which you need to understand. You need to increase the share of the market in order to make sure that everything actually works. Excuse me, please. Sorry about that. The people on the Zoom can't see what we are presenting. Yes. So it's very sad, and we've gone a long way. We've gone a long way. Anyway, so this is what I was talking about. The world production has gone up, but we are not capturing that part of productivity. Let's look at this. ZRA has told us that they've achieved 100% of their target market. But me, I'm standing here and saying, no, your target ambition is too low. That's why you have captured it. It's extremely low. It can't even pay for a single school. It's extremely low. And what we need to do is to check and see where. If you look at these particular curves here, this Zambia alone is $1 trillion business in dollars. $1 trillion business you can achieve in Zambia. But we keep on achieving below par. Now let's look at where most of the money perhaps came from as we look at this region. You see, this is a Niger force. And I can tell you that this has come about because that increase there has come about because I taught Mwanawasa 2008 to collect extra money through windfall tax. Oh, these are not my figures. These are ZRA figures. You've seen them, many of you have seen the report. And I got that report from EIZ. These are figures, not mine. So you can see at these particular locations here, it's when we collected extra money. Really, this curve here, in reality, if you go to the developed countries, this curve here must be going like that. That's what it should be going. Like that, going up. And that's when you see that you're developing. But at the moment, this curve here is totally flat. We are doing nothing, in other words. So we must make sure that we revise that. Let's look at another one. If we look at this performance, this is the total tax revenue we have collected of GDP, according to that. Now, if you look here, you've got a curve, and you've got a certain particular location where you've got increases. But much of it, we've been losing money. Much of it, we've been losing money. And I'll show you how we've been losing that money. For example, the cost of collection, if you look at those, is extremely high. Why are we spending so much money on a collecting tax? Look, 2.4% in 2020. 1.8, 2.2%, 2.1%. That's extremely high. Usually in developed economies where even the collection of taxes are much more complex than ours, they are on 0.02, 0.03 as the percentage of collection of those particular taxes. So why are we collecting taxes so high? We need to rectify that particular point. And of course, I understand that they give you a reason due to COVID. They've created these other offices. But that's not reality. These are pretty high even before COVID. In 2016, there was no COVID. I can't remember COVID in 2016. Can you? So we need to rectify these things when we start working. This is where we are losing money. And again, this is the curve from ZRA. So what I've done is I've analyzed the figures. What I've done is I've taken and said, these refunds which we give to these people, if we look at the rate, we are losing 1,087,000,000. 1,087,000,000 a year in refunds. That's what we're losing. And it's unrecoverable. Yeah, it is. I'm not making these figures up. These are ZRA figures. So every year, you can see these figures going up and up and up and up and up. This is what we should hear as our income. No wonder we don't have anything. We need to rectify this particular problem. And the business model I'm going to show you will rectify that. And you as engineers must be coming up and telling everybody that this is unacceptable. We cannot be losing this amount of money. 1.08 billion per year as the rate. It's very simple. Even my granddaughter or your son or your daughter can actually calculate this. It's very simple. It's just an angle. Find out that angle with the rate. Okay? That's why I'm so annoyed with the economists in this country. Many of them, I don't know what they're doing. They should be the one guiding us, these economists, but they are not guiding us in that particular fashion where we need to develop. And I'll be coming to that. But by the way, what is the paradox here in terms of job creation? The last government, despite all the difficulties, despite all the amount of money which they squandered and wasted, they created some jobs. And looking at it, again, from the ZRA, you find that some of the jobs were created during this period, 2016 to 2020. 375,000 jobs were created. And many of these, of course, are in that construction industry, where we're building roads, we're building bridges, we're building this and that. So we're in that particular. So it's another short-term type of employment. It hasn't moved forward in order to give us that capability which we need to have. So, and with that, of course, the administration doubled those jobs. Let's come to GDP. You remember I promised you that I'll talk about GDP. GDP not fit for purpose in Africa. GDP, economists will tell you, oh, I'm calculating GDP. Oh, we are growing at 5%. We are growing at 6%. A lot of new thinkers say, no, that's not true. And I'll show you why it's not true. Read this, for example, and this is a quotation from one of the scientists. He says that traditionally, one of the guiding factors for development has been per capita, which is GDP in other words. The value of goods and services produced by a country in a year divided by a country's population. Yet GDP may be a very inaccurate indicator in the poorest countries, particularly sub-Saharan countries. And he goes on to explain why GDP cannot work for poor countries like ours. He comes here, and the good thing is that when Morton Yeven came here, he did analysis on Zambian statistics. He spent 4 years here in Zambia collecting statistics from the Statistics Office and ZRA. And this is his book, The Poor Numbers, How We Are Misled by African Development Statistics and What to Do About It. And that's his book. You can buy it. And there he specifically gives examples on Zambia. And this is what I'm quoting. And I'll quote on that. The challenges of calculating GDP are particularly acute in sub-Saharan owing to weak national statistics offices and historically biased and muddy crucial measurements. He goes on to say, bothered by what he regarded as a problem in Zambia, and he mentions this, Zambia's national statistics. In the poor numbers who actually, then he goes to finish off. And when he goes to finish off, he says, it makes strong case that a lot of GDP measurements we thought were accurate are far from it. And that's what I was telling you. Because it doesn't make sense. Remember those GDP of 6%? 5-6% growing? That's what we're saying. We were saying that 5-6% we are growing. We are not growing. Actually, we are getting poorer. We are going down with GDP. Now let's go on and I'll show you about GDP. This is what we need. And this is a proposal by a professor actually in Africa. But this proposal here is not the first one. Because when I was lecturing in Singapore and when I was lecturing in Indonesia, they taught me the same thing. So I've picked one of the Africans to actually show us that this is the real thing. He says here, we need to move beyond GDP to actually create creative and achieve fight poverty and achieve sustainable well-being. So this, Lorenzo Fredo from, I think, University of Cape Town, and you can find him there on governance innovation. He goes to say that GDP does not capture informal economies. The contribution of subsistence farming, non-commercial agriculture, and other localized forms of production and consumption through the introduction of new progress indicators that focus on human well-being, health, education, decent work, and natural welfare, African countries may be encouraged to promote a different development paradigm. And he's right. We need to develop our own, because if I go to Kanyama today, and they'll tell me and say, "Oh, you've been developing, you've been growing 6% every year," they will laugh at me. They say, "You don't know what you're talking about. You live in Europe." They will laugh at me, because when you go to them, their well-being is not satisfied. Their promotion is not. Their consumption is very low. So how can you say I'm growing when my trousers are becoming with holes? So we might think why I do not believe in GDP, especially in the developing countries. And this is a problem which we have. So what we need to do is this: a networked economy founded on localized forms of self-production and consumption would empower millions of people that are at the moment left out of the apparent African economic miracle. That GDP, which we are counting, which is really services from South Africa, which has got nothing to do with us. You go on. It's something else. What I've noticed since I came, how many malls have been built in this country? Where is all that money going to? Does that money go to Zambia? No, it goes to South Africa. And those are the services I'm talking about which create that GDP. Now, these same malls are getting even into compounds. There's one at Bowling, into compounds where our people used to have small businesses here and there. They've all been killed off. Even the little money they used to get is no longer there. Then I went into the shops to see if I can find. I wanted to buy something which is Zambian. I couldn't find any. It's all South African. I said, okay, let me look at a pack of onion. It's South African. Okay, let me look at this vegetable here. Package. It was South African. The only where I found vegetables which were from Zambia was in a Kapulonga, at that shop which belongs to the Greeks. Melissa. Yes. That's where I found vegetables from Zambia. ShopRite has completely dominated us, and it's really taken everything from us. Even the little thing which we had for our own people. And that's why they cannot feel that GDP you're talking about of 6% growth. They cannot feel it. And it's true, because it's not there. So what we need to do in the 21st century is to rectify this, to change the paradigm altogether, and to make sure that we begin to understand that it's only us and only us who can build this country. It's only us, as engineers, as economists, as policymakers, as who can actually build this particular country. So let's go on and do it. One solution is value addition to our natural resources. We can add value to many of our products, agriculture, mining, and so on and so forth. But for this particular presentation, I've chosen only the natural resources from the mining industry. But we can do on all those things, but to present all those in this presentation will be just too much. So I've taken just one of the examples, and that will lead us through to the manufacturing of the battery and the battery packs. Let's go on and do it. I met KK in 1990. I went to him and I said, Mr. President, I know you have been instrumental in the productivity of this particular country. Let's move on and start adding value. He said, young man, I came to University of Zambia. I said, young man, you are talking the right thing. Can you write a paper? So I wrote a paper for him, and I wrote what you call the position paper for what I thought was right at that particular time. So these are the holes which we have, because we haven't added value. This is our adding. This is our added value. We've got monuments. That is our added value. Monuments. And they will remain like that for centuries to come. So what I'm saying to you, and listen carefully, in the 21st century, mining and more mining is no longer acceptable. It's no longer. These are 19th and 20th century solutions. 21st century solutions are different. And you as engineers must be capturing this as we go along and understand exactly how you are going to do it. Because look at this man here. He's standing there and he says, "La, la." They've taken everything away, and this is what they've left us with. I was told yesterday that our young people are fighting for what they call a black mountain. But if I remember when I was a kid, it's one of those which are residue from the production of copper, which is the heap in Kitwe and Fulira and Chingola and some other places. It's because we haven't taken ourselves seriously. And we must change that. So listen carefully that in future we need to add value, despite the small copper which we have, if we add value, and I'll show you the figures which you're going to get. This is the legacy you see in Europe and everywhere else. You see them on their enormous castles, showing copper roofs as legacy. If I was born yesterday and I came to Zambia, I wouldn't even know that this country produced copper. I wouldn't. There's no legacy to show that we produce copper. If you want to go to the copper belt, you enter copper. There's no way you're going to know that this is actually a copper belt. If you've never read about it. We are not showing our resources. We are not showing our riches. But other people who don't even know where copper comes from are showing it. So these are the things. We don't have legacy. In 120 years from now, our children and grandchildren and so on will never know that this country actually produced copper, because copper also ends. Copper used to be Europe all over. They use it all. So they came to Africa. And our copper, they are using it all as well. So once it finishes, it's finished, we're gone. Without capitalizing on it. And that's a mistake which we don't want to do anymore. We must make sure that we stop that. So what I'm saying is, if you are thinking for more mining, increasing the production of mining alone and alone, this is what you are. This is a retrogressive, myopia, no real vision, and the colonial mentality of 19th and 20th century. You're an independent nation. That's what we are. We must move on to where we are. Too retrogressive. I've heard several times people saying, oh, we are going to produce 3 million tons of copper. From where? Okay, let me tell you about that. Zambia copper ore has got an extremely low percentage. It will take maybe 1,000 years to actually come to at least 2 million to produce that because of the low content of copper ore which we have. It will be impossible really to get to 3 million. If we get to 1,500,000, we'll be doing extremely well. That is a more possible target. Not 3 million. It's blah, 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 blah. So we better stop that. We do not have the capacity. I'm talking like this because I'm made privy to satellite images which are used at universities and which have been doing research on in the past maybe 15 years and looking at the topology of Zambia and where every single mineral is located in Zambia. I know. And the quantity through the satellite images will show you that Zambia has got copper good enough, yes, but the rich copper which we used to have is already gone. What we remain with is 0.3, 0.4 of percentage of copper in them. So this is not a good thing. You cannot achieve the 3 million. So what we need to do ourselves is to start thinking differently. And to think differently in a solution is to change our business model. To become and generate a smart business model for the nation. And this is what we need to do. And when you come to that extent of generating that business model, then you'll be able to understand exactly where you're coming from and where you're moving to in order to give you the capability at the same time in order to give you the opportunities which are required in order to deliver those particular targets. And you see what smart business model I've created for Zambia. And I've got on to say the only way to answer and improve, move out of our poverty is really on value addition. Then you come to me and say, Professor, you come again. Zambia out of poverty. No way. How are you going to do it to realize that? Then I'll answer you. Simple. Simple, simple, simple. We can do it. And we'll do it. This is the way we're going to do it. I met him in 2011. He's now the president of Zambia. You can see how humble he was. He was like a little child when I was greeting him. I'm putting my hand firmly, but he's trying to retreat him. You know, he wasn't mature enough. But now he's a mature president. And he's thinking very hard for Zambia. And this is a good thing. And this is a good thing. We must support him. All of us must support him. And this is why I came here to present this particular presentation. It's because I believe that we see now the new era, which I call the new era, and we'll actually move away from this. So let's move on. The only way we're going to do that is to now utilize all our natural resources. Start using them. Using them not for the benefit of the mining companies who are going to take it away, but using them for the benefit of ourselves who are going to use it here in the country and export it. And we are going to do that in a very planned fashion. We've got lithium. Although we've got very little of it, we can actually locate and work together with the Congo, which has got lithium, plenty of it, and we also got Zimbabwe, which has got lithium, plenty of it. Then, of course, we've got aluminium, very little of it. We've got manganese, in fact, the manganese in Zambia does not even appear on any map, does not even appear in any statistics. Because South Africa dwarfs manganese in Zambia. South Africa is number 2 in the world in terms of manganese production. Number 1 is Ukraine. And number 2 now is actually what? Is South Africa. And I'll show you the map so you can see it. So we've got cobalt. Plenty of it, but extremely expensive. So what we need to do in this particular case is to see how we can use that particular cobalt to our benefit. Nickel, copper, zinc, all these can work for us. can work for us in a good way, and I'll show you the numbers, how they can work for us. So our product choice for national market research carried out in 2019 and later 2011 show that Zambia needs to intensify the search for what? Downstream industries. I divided that in 2 phases. Because like everything else, if you pump everything in one phase, you get confused and you will not be able to actually deliver the goods which you're trying to deliver. So what I did was to divide that in phase 1 and phase 2. I'm saying, first of all, we need to primarily produce the goods which we are looking for before we come to the secondary stage. So the primary stage will have copper finished products, nickel finished products, cobalt finished product, zinc finished product, manganese finished products. Then in the secondary phase, we are going to utilize those finished products and assemble them what? Into where? Into energy storage systems. That's a process which we're going to use. And it has worked extremely well in Ghana because I've done the consultancy exactly the same like I'm doing in the translation here. I did it for Ghana. Now, if you go to Ghana, they did not have downstream industry for aluminium, which is their most expensive and in abundance. And I helped them to do that. And today, if you go to Ghana, you find that they are producing different components from aluminium. Wires from aluminium, everything from aluminium, because of that same understanding. These are the catalysts to this economy. And in order for us to map up and say, how are we going to use these catalysts, let's pick up a subject. And the subject of electrical has come at the right time for us. Has come at the right time for us because it gives us what we call a family room where all of us can enter and deliver and eat from that family room. And this is why I like about electric vehicles. And this is why I like to come and talk to you about it, because I know that in this particular 21st century, it's our century. Only if we think and deliver the things properly. Otherwise, we're going to miss the train. We say that every electric vehicle has got 25 to 35% weight of materials found in Zambia. If we are clever enough, we can capture that market there very easily. And the things which are going in this market, the technologies which are going in there, are rudimental. And I'll show you how you can do it. We have copper, nickel, gold, manganese, cobalt. We can utilize that. This is a 5.6 trillion business. 5.6 trillion. That's estimated by 2030. Now, if we cannot jump on this bandwagon, at least get 100 billion from it, we must be crazy. We must be crazy. For example, now, as I'm talking to you, United Kingdom is investing 800 to 900 billion to develop its power storage capacity. And 2 industries are coming up. And recently, I moved closer to one of them because I've been working with them on this particular industry. And one of, I've seen Emmanuel somewhere. Oh, there you are. Emmanuel Masika, he was my PhD student in the United Kingdom. Can you stand so that I can see you? He was my PhD student in the United Kingdom. And we have this capability which we can actually develop. And so on, and we can actually do this. So what components can we do? These components here are there. Now, I'll tell you one thing which is very, perhaps a paradox. If I go to that street where they repair cars in town, pardon? Nangananga. Mangananga. Okay, whatever. I went in there and I found a young man taking wire from a rope and rewinding a motor. Now you're telling me that boy did not go to university. Now you're telling me a graduate who went to university, an engineer cannot do that? And I said, did it work? I said, yes, the first one which I did. Here it is. And it worked. I went to check the voltage, I went to check the amps, everything was as it was written on the book. And this boy has never gone to university. Even he told me that he left in Form 2. Oh, what is Form 2 now? Grade 9. So these are the things I'm talking about. These are very simple. We can do the motors, controller, charger, these inverters, heaters, and all this. And let me show you these examples. This is a motor. It can be done very easily. In fact, here in this motor here, which you see here, you can have 10, 15 companies, small ones, 3 people, 10 people, 20 people. All of them will be doing a different component on it, and you take it to one which will actually assemble it. So you don't need to buy large equipment or very expensive equipment in order to achieve what you're trying to do in terms of business. You can do it by getting into a supply chain. And that's why the downstream industry is extremely important. Let's look at the controller. Can also use it and design that. It's very simple. It's all made of copper. Let's look at the heating, radiators. Up to today, we still buy radiators from other countries. And many of these radiators are made of copper, alloy. We can manufacture them here and become millionaires. The battery pack, for example, relays, all these connectors, all these can be made by small company. Even people who have got a small garage in their backyard can start working from there. Let me tell you this particular type of business. They can do that. So to do that, we need to look at copper. In order to achieve all those which I meant, we need to look at copper. How is copper important to us? It's important to us because it's a low fruit. It's lower. You can just stand here or lie down and pick it up. And pick it up. Instead of you trying to start mining and introducing new technologies. So it's important that you look at it in that way. So let's look at copper. This is at present. Zambia's share in copper is only 2%. Everything is taken by the mines. Everything is taken by the mines. We've got enormous losses. My dad, and I've got my brother sitting here as well. Our dad went in the Flora mines, and what we did there is something which is important. We looked at it and said, how can we increase the share from 2% to 98%? We need to cut that. I've been calling this for years. Many of you who remember my publications, which I did, in 2005, I published an article in the Post newspaper of how you can add value to a copper. I thought at that particular time I was presenting something which was tangible, where engineers could pick it up and start running with it. But engineers up to today are saying, I've got no job. How can you say that? Engineers are supposed to create jobs, not to look for jobs. If you are a technician, I understand, because you have to work for the engineer. But remember that you are educated in order to create jobs as engineers, not to look for jobs. Then again, I did this in my published material, which I did at 29 and 2020. That was everywhere. Many of you would have read it on different sites. Then I came in 2012 and presented this at Tinta's Hotel. And this particular picture was actually the top of the page of my presentation. So you can see that all these things which we've been talking about for over 45 years and more have never been implemented. When I speak to Europeans, they sit there. They even follow me and say, okay, I want to do this. They will follow me with a consultancy. They say, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that. They will take, and next day to their product. I hope this time you're going to do the same. You're going to create these particular products which I will be talking about in a minute. So we say, why do we need to do that? And this is the reason. Because our curve is flat. Our capability is $1 trillion. That's what we are worth every year. But we are far from it. We are far from it. That's why we need to do this. We need to go there, exponential. There, not here flat. No. Let's look at the world market. Why we should do it? If you look at the world market, China is the biggest. It occupies a position of 50% world production and consumption. A lot of people say, oh, China buys copper from us. What they are buying from you are reserves. China is the biggest producer of copper. Not Chile, not United States, not Russia. China is the biggest producer. Zambia actually is very low down the line. So you can see in the utilization, the consumption. China takes much. US takes only 8% of the copper. Russia takes 5%, Germany 5%, Japan 5%, Korea, South Korea 2%, and others, including ourselves, were actually grouped in this 25% here. So we need to change that. Let's look at the sectors we can work in as Zambians. 12% of copper goes in transport, 12% in industry, 15% in infrastructure, 30% in construction, and 31% in equipment. So these here will give you the basis from where you want to start from. Where do you want to? Do you want to work in construction, or do you want to work in transport and utilize copper in those particular areas? You can. It's very easy to do that. Where are African countries? I may call Congo, which is now the biggest producer of copper. Where is it? Zambia, second producer of copper. Where is it? It's nowhere to be seen. But we are counting China, we are counting South Korea, which never even knows where copper comes from. So I want to change that, and I'll change that this way. This is the traditional route which we used to have before. Copper comes from Zambia in cathodes and transported to all these countries outside Africa. Then from there, 98% goes to Asia, Europe, America, 1% Australia, Singapore, and the basin. And in Africa, we only send 0.4%. Now, this has changed, and I'll show you how it has changed. Benefit to Zambia, very little, and mostly it's losses. That's what we are. We are here running the business of a mining companies. We are here running the business of, say, we are a mining country, but in reality, it's not us who are getting from that mining company. So we must change this particular type of business. We go on in terms of what we can claim from our own material. If we look at it by Zambia, the royalty which we claimed in 2008, Zambia is way below there. United States, China again, has got nearly 24 to 23, 24% of royalty from every ton of copper they mine. But we are giving even Chinese tax breaks. We are giving the Europeans tax breaks. You can see where Chile is. 30, 40 years ago, Chile was below Zambia. South Korea was below Zambia. I remember when I was a kid in Mufulira, the South Koreans came to Mufulira to come and learn from Mufulira mines how to process copper. And since my father was in the refinery, he even brought them home to actually show us, oh, this is my family and so on, and this people have come from South Korea to learn from us. And that is then. I was still a little boy. Up to today, we haven't moved. So we can see how we are still way below there. We are claiming very little to sustain this economy, to build schools, to build hospitals, to bring medicines and all that. We are still very little indeed. We need to move away from there. And this is why I'm saying again, I'll repeat that, because for those who did not understand, I want to repeat this. The 21st century solution is not about mining, and more mining. It's about value addition, how you can make more money from it, the little time which you have. And that's the future in the 21st century. Let's begin. So if we begin with this, you see a shadow. The light is facing you, and we are trying to chase a shadow. I say Zambia should stop chasing its shadow with light behind. It will never be caught. That term which I've used there is very simple. I've heard many of economists trying to push ourselves to go to IMF looking for money. Looking for 12 billion, you must be joking. We have wasted 9 months chasing for 12 billion. Within that 12 months, we've created 50, 100 billion. Why are we chasing 12 billion? And these are the things which you need to understand when we are talking about this thing. We must stop chasing our shadow. We will never catch it. It's a revolving. It's like a hamster. When hamster is in a wheel, the wheel will be just turning. It will never stop. Because next time, what you are going to do, you are going to start borrowing for consumption. And that's what we are going to do when we go to IMF. We are not borrowing for investment, we are borrowing for consumption. And if you borrow for consumption in your house. Yeah? Tomorrow you go and borrow 100 kwacha to buy a millimeter. If you are not making money for next time to buy that millimeter, you are going to borrow more. It's as simple as that. So that must stop. And for us to stop that, we must start beginning to, the beginning of a prosperous life is to love yourself. We must start loving ourselves as Zambians. Be proud of ourselves as Zambians. Otherwise, if we do not do that, what we are going to have is we are going to be in peril. Borrow for investment is the key. Because you know that when you borrow for investment, you are making more money. And when you are making more money, you have more money to pay the school. And you stop running around with the ball of a beggar. 12 billion, give me 12 billion. No, come, that's ridiculous. And this has been advised by economists. And this is why I'm so annoyed with the economists in Zambia. They must pull up their socks. This is what we have. If we look at wire and cable industry, this is wire and cable. 94% of all the cables which we have here come from outside Africa. But copper is in Africa. So I'm going to change that by creating this particular African market like this. So that Zambia can be producing, using this particular mechanism, all the copper wires which we need and supply the entire Africa. Stop running to Europe or United States or China or whatever to go and sell your copper. That's not your market. That market, you lost it in 2006. So start developing a virgin, as I call it, new virgin market in Africa. That's where money is. Europe is broke. America is broke. The only country which has got money is China. So who's going to buy your product? Start looking at Africa. That's where money is. And if we become the African capital of wire and cables, this country will be in another world. Let me tell you one thing. As I was researching this, I found that South Africa, of all the countries, is investing government is investing $30 billion to develop its wire industry. But where is the copper going to come from? Guess what? From Zambia. You can do it yourself. Look here. You can sit in Zambia here, and you can open the markets here. And I'll show you how you're going to open those markets. And these engineers, one person working in a small shop outside and developing that into the supply chain, will be able to earn money from it. And the beauty, perhaps, with the African continental free trade area is that you do not need to go into the lengthy extent of having all these what you call negotiations and contracts and so on. You can open offices in all these as Zambians to start selling your product and selling it vigorously in order to get that money into Zambia. Let's start with this. We can supply all these, wire, copper, manganese, all these, made in Zambia to all these countries. We'll become the center of copper industry. We have copper, it's ours. Why are we giving it to somebody else? Then from there it comes back to us. Look at Zesco, all the wires they get from outside. While copper is just lying here, they go to the copper belt and they put wires there, which are coming from China, Europe, and all over the place, even South Africa. Well, they put their own copper here. It's a disaster. Total disaster. So we must move away from them. And this is the market. If you are selling a cathode, this is an average price which I've put here of 500 per ton. You've got a 500 kiloton in terms of wire. This is actually the African market. That tonnage which I've put here is the African market in what? In wire and cable. And Zambia so far has tapped 0. And what's the value of that market? This is the value. 51.39 billion just in Africa. And every year, you have a growth of compound annual growth rate of 5.5. So it's a growing market. And so far we tap what? 0. We started very well when Kaunda created Zamefa. But Zamefa has let us down. We need to have 200, 300 companies like Zamefa in Zambia. Not one, not two, 500 companies like that. United Kingdom, for example, in the wire industry, is a 6.5 trillion pounds sterling. And most of their copper comes from Zambia, of course. And within that particular market, what they do is they use, and they are growing, and within that particular market, even a small companies are the owners of that particular market. Small businesses, which engineers, simple engineer technicians who are working individually or in a group of 10, 15 people are actually making that money. And that's the United Kingdom. We can become the African. This is the tonnage we are looking for. And that's the money we have. Not chasing 12 billion. Here, it's on the table. You've got the raw material. Why should you be chasing something else which you do not have? Let's move on to show you exactly how you can get that, because here I was actually calculating for those who do not understand how the compound annual growth rate is calculated. I've actually given you an equation here. Because it says that CR is the rate of return that would be required for investment to grow from its beginning to the end. So you take that particular ratio, then from there you can grow your business in that particular case. Many of the equipment we are talking about to make wire costs only about $10,000. Many of the equipment. You don't need expensive equipment. They are not billions of dollars investment. No, they are not. If you go to China, they're even cheap. So this is the first stage of downstream industry, which I'm looking for And they want us to be making this particular one. We've got the industry, we've got the mines. Mopani and Kesia can become the center of producing this particular first stage. Then we distribute down the stream to small companies who are going to utilize those. But what we need to make sure is that we start by government to produce the first stage of the business. And I'll show you how. Then from there, the 8 millimeter to 5 millimeter, we can create anything which we want. You can even sell this. Already you have added value. Already you have added value to that material. Not sending cathodes, but sending wire rods. And the final stage is actually making cables. The cable industry is enormous. And we have never tapped into it. That's what it is. 267 billion. By 2016, you've got a compound annual growth rate of 6%. By the way, much of that goes to China. We can retrieve some of that to ourselves. At least if we can make, as I said, in African context, that 51 billion just from wire will be flying. We will no longer go begging. We will no longer be taken so ridiculously because we are poor. No. We'll be doing extremely well. This is another part which we can go on. We can produce these. Already, I remember when I was a kid, we used to produce anodes in England. You can do that as a first stage, and from there you actually start producing what you call bars at a different location by extrusion. And the extrusion equipment is very simple. It's too rudimental, in fact. It's too rudimental, in fact. All this is money. You've added value. And you can get this if the government gives us that opportunity to create that prime industry, which I'll be talking about. We can actually ourselves, one or two people within the industry, can be able to start manufacturing this. And we'll be bundling on that and sending them overseas. Or we can send them to the next stage of production. And just these bars here are 2.11 billion. Just that. With a cut of 3%. So all these are growing markets, which we need to look at. Let's look at other ones. It's another bar. Different forms, which you can do. Again, if you look at that, you are talking of 129 billion type of business, with 3.3 every year in growth. Tubes utilization in industry, copper especially, is a big thing. Every house in Europe, North America that has got copper tubes. Every aircraft you see, every car you see has got copper tubes. So you are talking of an enormous market of 129.63 billion. I'm not saying that Zambia can take all of that. No. What I'm saying is we can tap into that. At least we can get the 20 billion out of it. And which is feasible. It's in our grasp, which we need to move. Remember I said that Zambia is a $1 trillion per year country. But we are wallowing in poverty. Why? And these are the solutions. This is the African market in tubes. 1.2 billion, we've talked about that. And these are the flat plates. In fact, for flat plates, anybody who's sitting here can do it. It's just a matter of cutting. They'll come flat from another industry. You cut them, you can cut them into strips, you can cut them into rolls, you can cut them into, and it's very simple. It's just a guillotine. So there's no problem, we can do all this, but we need our government to create a prime, to give us these opportunities. And what is this? It's 624 million. If you are only doing the bus bars here, by you cutting those by guillotine and drilling, and then supply those, I'm sure you're going to get a million out of there. As an engineer, as an entrepreneur. So it is important that we start actually doing this, and we need the government to help us to do that. Copper foil. We use everywhere. Especially copper foil is used in our battery system, which we are going to see in a minute. And that one, this business is 21.8 billion. Just copper foil. By you passing copper through 2 rollers, you're getting this with a 7.2%. You do not need sophisticated equipment of 2 million. No, this equipment to actually create this costs about $10,000 to $15,000. 2 rollers, and in the future, once you buy one, you can even copy it and re-engineer and make more and more and more and more yourself, rather than actually buying from anywhere else. So they're simple to make. So you can see that we are losing money. We are sitting here ourselves crying that we do not have money when we are sitting on our money. So this is what I call red-made revenue for Zambia. And we can supply all these to where? To our new market. Forget about Europe. Forget about China. Forget about America. This is our new market. And that after help us to do that, because it's a single market. And that single market, we must capitalize in it in order to have the businesses trying to run as much as we can. So this is what we have. And now, once we have all the components which we need, we can move to another product. Brass, copper and zinc. We have these. Readily available. Readily available. It's just a matter of mixing them in proportion. If you want brass, which is of the highest quality, you mix with a high content of zinc. Of small, which is not structural, you mix it with a component of zinc, which is of a low percentage. And you get brass. For piping, for example, and so on, the brass which you need very little zinc into that. So you can see that you can create brass. And that one is 17.78 billion. All these industries, you don't need to build new buildings. You can locate them at Luansha copper mines, Mufulira copper mines, KCM copper mines, because those buildings which are there are rotting. Nobody is using them. You can put your industries in those buildings. You don't need to build new industry, no. Buildings are already there, which are not utilized. They are not utilized. So that cost of building new buildings and new industry and so on, that is eliminated. It's saving money. Looking at other brass, copper tubes and all that, you are getting another 10 billion. Just supplying Africa. At the moment, 9 billion goes to South Africa. And 1 billion goes to Morocco and Libya. But Libya his business has collapsed, so Morocco takes the other bit. And Nigeria has started actually working on this by buying copper from Congo. So you can see that we ourselves are not tapping into this. Let's look again. These are just bars and plates. And these plates, which are high quality brass, are used in aerospace industry, in power plants, in nuclear industry, in aerospace, in submarines. You get all this. And from there, you have a whopping 496 billion. And you can sell this either in Africa, or you can take them to where they're being utilized in Europe or United States. But you've already added value by just taking a plate, by just making a plate. Is it difficult? No. So that's what we need to have. Let's look at another product, nickel. these are nickel products. And each one of these ones here are not made in Zambia. But they are in Zambia, you can find them. And when you look at that, it's a whopping 59 billion. So all these products, which are given here, and the 7.3 again, can actually have a lot of confidence. You've seen bears, you've seen those who have been arrested, of course, and all that. You've seen the cops, all these. So you can actually do this here at home. Nickel pipes are extremely important, especially in the industry where you've got thermal energy and so on. Heat exchangers, all those, you use nickel pipes. And they even command higher value because of their utilization due to rusting and so on. So 59 billion, you can tap into that. Manganese. Although we have just started to do with manganese, let me tell you that manganese in Zambia does not even appear on the world reserves. This is the world reserves. Number one is Ukraine, 140 million tons. Number two is South Africa with 120 million tons. Number three is Brazil with 110 million pounds. Australia is 93 million pounds. India, 56 million pounds. Gabon with 2 million pounds. China with 44 million pounds. And Russia with about 25 million tons. So you've got all these reserves, and Zambia does not appear. So the little which we have, we can actually utilize it, what you call, responsibly and intelligently, which we are going to utilize in our industry. So once again, for us to have all those components which I've been talking about, we can now start assembling them into what we call energy storage system. Once the making of the battery pack, I will give you an example of the lithium-ion battery and how it's made, and the technology which is used to make this particular battery. We've got two types of cells which you can use: a pouch cell and the cylindrical cell. Many of you know the cylindrical cell because you've got laptops, you've got your things, so you can see the 18625 battery and so on. Once you have these cells, you assemble them first of all into a module. You cannot assemble them into a module without using copper. And that's the beauty where we stand. That's where Zambia stands in the pinnacle, in the middle of everything. So we can tap into that. And as you can see, all these oranges, all that are actually what we call copper cables. Then once you have the modules, then you can build up what we call a pack. And the pack is the entire battery system. These are just the chemistry. I'm not going to go into bore you into the chemistry of everything, the weaknesses and other things, so I'll skip that. But because it's something which is relevant only to engineers. And I would like to talk about this because it's important. It's when you are designing a battery. Remember, all the batteries which you buy in the shops today are designed. They are not produced to the same standard. Every single battery is different, dependent on who manufactures that particular battery. So when you are designing a battery cell, you have to this curve. These are the dependency which you have, and we call this dependency of voltage and the specific capacity as energy density. So this is what we have. On our cathode, you'll be working in this particular area, and on our anode, we'll be working in this particular area. So the different components and the different chemistries which you are going to have. So you see that it is important to understand the chemistry and understand how energy is built and delivered in a battery system. So this is what to do that, we're going to do that. We have created, and this is the Honda battery, and this is the Oviv battery. We use this at Xiamen University in China, where they test all the batteries. And we invested a little bit in this because we were trying to develop a new battery system in China, which we wanted to bring for manufacturing in the United Kingdom. And this is why we actually applied, and this was built by a PhD student in Shaman, and we utilize it for that. And this is to test every battery which we design. We design different battery systems. And when we design those, we need to test them in terms of their capacity, in terms of the way the power is depleting in the battery system, degrading, and so on and so forth, and how they maintain the heat temperatures and all that. And we use this particular platform, particular bed, to actually do that. And Oviva's got its platform, and that's the Honda platform. In each single battery cell, there are 13 to 15 parts. And all these parts are found in Zambia. You can use them and analyze and make the parts within them. So these are the sources. Sources are in the mines. That's what we have here in Zambia. But in other countries, they got brines. For example, in Chile, for example, you find brines, white, like white salt. You've seen that on many pictures. Lithium carbonate, and then from there you hydrate it, and you come to build your primary application, which is lithium ion. But a cell itself, you can make that in Zambia. And this is the way it's made. Remember the kitchen foil, which you've got in your kitchen, aluminium foil, all of you have that. But the one which we use is actually 8 microns, but this one is a little bit thicker, which is 15 microns, as you can see. But it's the same material which you have, because the one which you have in the kitchen actually has about 99.6% purity. So you don't have to say you don't know the material. The material is there. That's the fundamental, and you can use that as a substrate, which we call collector. Then we've got the powders. From manganese, lithium oxide, you can actually pound it. And that's where we start from in our processing of copper here in Zambia. It goes through a concentrate, isn't it? Then from there you get the product. So in other words, we are cutting off the ending of making that into a metal. We are cutting off that, and we are using that as a lithium manganese oxide. And all these are the different chemistries which you can have. And these chemistries, in order for them to perform adequately, we bind them. We bind them into what we call polyvinyl ID. And this is a powder. It's actually a polymer. Why we bind them into there is very simple. In chemistry, for example, those who have learned a bit of the chemistry, is that when we bind them in there, we want to create moisture. Once we create a little bit of moisture within the binder, what we do at the end is that we are allowing the electrons to have free vibration as much as possible. The more they vibrate, the more we can. The more we have everything which is moving towards that particular part. So in those cases, this is what we have and create. Once we bind them, then we can coat our aluminium foil. And once we coat our aluminium foil, then what we can do, we can put the system, or what we call the electrolyte, on both sides of the aluminium foil. And it's very simple, and I'll show you how. And this is the copper. We use a copper 9mm raw, 99.99% for the anode substrate. And all batteries which you have, you're going to roll them in that particular way. And you must make sure that the type of weight and the thickness in microns is actually controlled precisely. Otherwise, you're going to have micro aberration which are going to occur within the component or within the battery. Of course, you have a foam. And the foam, what we use in order to use it as a cathode, and it's a binding system which we have to create and create barriers through that. This is just a separator, because you cannot put anode and cathode together, so you need a separator to separate the two components and generate power or electricity through that. This is just an outside cover. Many of the battery which you see, you have the outside cover as steel. So you can actually utilize that as a foil. And make sure that you have it properly done. And these are the sales you can make. If you go to industry today, you can buy these separately. You can buy these. There are companies specifically selling all the components. And what you need to do yourself is to design the battery. That's all. You can buy these. You can buy the tubes, you can buy the plugs, you can buy the concentrators, and what you need to do yourself is to get your aluminum and to get your copper and to get your carbon, and from there you can actually design whatever cylinder you want. We are very familiar, most of us, with this particular battery system here, the 18650, because that's the one which you see everywhere in all the charging systems. And this is the way you put them. So you roll them. Once you've done that, you roll them. And then to roll them like that, let me just show you the equipment. The quality and purity of this material is the efficiency of life, and then it gives you that particular battery life. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Sorry about that. Yeah. And this is the manufacturing process. When you look at this, you think, oh no, this equipment is extremely expensive. You are talking of hundreds of millions of pounds. No. The gentleman sitting here can buy a mixer just to mix that powder. The other gentleman or lady sitting there can buy a coating machine, and so on and so forth. So you become the supply chain of this particular battery, and that's the way Europe works, and that's where the Chinese work, and that's where the Americans work, and that's where the Russians work, and that's where everybody works. In order to do that, you have to make sure that when you create this, you have to buy equipment, and you can do it in your own areas. Or if you feel so rich, then you can have the entire line of the processing plant. But it's better, like when we do it in the United Kingdom, to a small company, what we call small medium companies. Small medium companies will have these machines to mix the powder and to pour the powder, calendaring the powder. That means sticking the powder on the substrate and so on. So you can see that everybody can participate in this development. Everybody can earn money. You can become your own company generators. But what we need to do, we need so that the government creates what we call a prime for us. And these are the different batteries you can make. All of them are made in Zambia. But all these, so far, are being made outside Zambia. But you can make them. They are very simple. Extremely simple to make. So to do that, we need to look at the proportion in terms of volume. What type of material do you need? And we need to do that. You need to look at, for example, the lithium iron phosphate. What material do you need? You can see that copper takes 9% of all the conductors. To do that, you can even see copper, plenty of it, utilized in these batteries when you cut it. And when you cut it electrolyte, you can see a lot of copper everywhere. So copper plays an enormous role in all these batteries. And we can participate in that supply chain. And we can participate in generating economy to make this economy work for Zambia. And it's extremely important that we participate in it. Otherwise, we'll be dead. This is in terms of cost. So again, you get the type of cost, how it's manipulated. Now, if, for example, in Africa, I've put this picture here purposely because I want to show you the quantities you need in a power pack of a car, of that power plant, and so on and so forth. How much of copper is utilized in each particular case. And all these will be made in Zambia. This is where it is. Look, copper in every EV battery pack is 20 kilograms. 20 kilograms of copper is utilized in those particular cases. Graphite, 52 kilograms. And by the way, a lot of graphite, the country which manufactures a lot of graphite is Mozambique. It has got a lot of it. So graphite, aluminium, 35 kilograms. Nickel, 29 kilograms of it. Cobalt, 4.3 kilograms. So cobalt does not play a lot of role in the battery pack. So to say that you are going to utilize your cobalt in a battery pack, you might actually be wasting a lot of money because cobalt is very expensive. So what you have to do, you have to look at which ones you need to add. Manganese, 10 kilograms. And then from there, you have your steel also at 6 kilograms. So lithium itself, which we call lithium ion, lithium oxide, and so on, it's only 6.2 kilograms. So we are bound to utilize other people's lithium in order to create our own battery system. Because copper is our biggest partner. It's ours. We can utilize it. We can jump into the supply chain and start making these as quickly as we can. Congo will make the lithium, but lithium is very small in its quantity. We can get lithium also from Zimbabwe, who have got this lithium. They can actually get that. Steel we've got here, aluminium we've got here, nickel we've got here. So everything, all the materials we are talking about, we have. And the only thing to do is to assemble them into a battery pack. And once we assemble them, this is our new market in the world. We can send these as semi-assemblies for other countries to utilize them and assemble into other products. Remember those components I was talking about earlier on? And those are the ones which we need to learn. And this is a blossoming strategy. It's a blossoming strategy because of this. Each single EV, a 60 kilowatt, will cost $21,000. Now, I spoke of how much copper is in there. If we do that, we know that we're selling a ton of copper at what? At 5,500 per ton. If we do that, on a single cell, we are increasing our revenue of copper 1,160%. Only 20 kilograms. Are you reading me? So why am I doing this? I know. Because we are not tapping into people who know these things. We are trying to reinvent the wheel. If, for example, somebody came to me today and said, Professor, can you help us how we fund this? I won't hesitate, I will help you. Because I know that you'll be developing this country. So this is what I'm talking about. If you look at manganese, despite the little manganese which we use, we're increasing that percentage. But lithium itself, we're not increasing a lot. Only 37% of its value. Cobalt, we're not increasing a lot. Only 50% of its value. So our biggest partners are copper and manganese. We can, if we're not producing the copper and we're not producing the power pack, we can produce all those components from copper and manganese. We can supply to different countries and then they can utilize. There are billions and billions of dollars in those particular cases. So we can actually do that. And as you can see, how? Just for a single 60 kilowatt, you can build a different battery system, 100 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt hour, and so on and so forth. You can do that. So what do we need? We need to make sure that we move very quickly in that direction. If we delay for another year or two, perhaps 3 years, we'll lose the entire market of that battery which we've been talking about. We'll lose the entire market and it's coming very quickly, that loss. Why? Because there's this new technology which we call energy harvesting thermoelectric generator. At NASA's Horizon, which was fly by Pluto in 2014, ongoing in the deep, it went about 300 million kilometers. And it's beyond the solar system. And if it's beyond the solar system, you know that you cannot use solar panels to actually generate power. So you have to use the old system, a design which somebody did in 18-something, which is Soviet, did in that particular part, to actually give us electricity. Now, if you look at that, Civic, in 1821, he discovered that by you taking the heat from one end and the differential, which means that the difference in in temperatures, you can actually excite the different elements in that component by sinking on the other side. So in other words, we know this technology already. We have used it. It's in our refrigeration system. We heat, we sink, and we get refrigerated. Now, in 1834, Belgium did the reverse. When he did the reverse, it gave us the opportunity now to start from the cold to where? To heat. And that's the way you create electricity. And this is coming very quickly. So we need to move faster to utilize our copper. Otherwise, we will to remain in the ground for many, many years and from us. So we need to do it. Now, what do we have here? This is how it works. On a Pluton, you have what you call the heat source. These are aluminum panels. They are attracting cold. So once they are attracting cold, and the heat source will be down here. So once they attract, so the electrons will actually vibrate all the way to this cold element from heat to the cold element, and that will generate power to move what? To move the satellite around. This exists. We used it. And I participated in this project. And if you look at it, you find that we want to utilize this technology now into cars as much as we can. We already use that technology in refrigeration on a smaller scale. But scaling up has been very difficult so far. But the research is going on. Around the world, people are researching now how they can actually maximize the utilization of this. Because otherwise you need a big chunk of material which is so heavy in order to create that particular power. But electricity has been created using the Plato system. So this is why I'm saying, let us move, let us move, let us move. This is a simple example which Plato used, though that you can actually have here. You heat it, then it goes to a sinker, and it creates electricity to what? To power your telephone. And that is a simple technology. And the fact that it already exists, and this is refrigeration, the pure which we use. And we are moving towards that. So in the future, you might find that the lithium-ion battery becomes obsolete, and it's moving very quickly. So please, remember that we must move as quickly as we can to create a manufacturing base of all the components I talked about, which we can tap into those billions and billions of dollars. It's 6 months. Yes, 6 months. From the time you start off to the time you produce the product. So we need to move as quickly as we can. And this is the program, because you need capacity in order to build all these. And what I'm proposing is this. I want year 12 to start learning our battery design. It must be in the curriculum at year 12, whereby they will start now from there to understand the fundamental of these materials which you're going to utilize. They need to come to vocational schools where you're going to do, these are technical schools, technical colleges, then university, and then the postgraduates who are going to design those particular batteries. The potential is there. The only thing we need to do is to build capacity. And we can do that. If you want me to write the curriculum from year 12 to year, I'll do it for you. So those are the things which we need to actually do. And Zambia has to move fast or miss the train. So it's important we do that. And of course, these are the benefits you can get, the business which you can have, the economy, you can build different components at different stages of the program in capacity building. Then from there, this is what I'm proposing to the government. If there's anybody here from the government, please go and pass them this particular message. I want from the mines, which many of these do not belong to us, and 2 of them, I think, his case here now belong to Zambian government. No? Not yet. Okay, all right. Which belongs to the Zambia government? Mopani. Pardon? Mopani, yes. Even Mopani. All those mines which are produced, I want the government to base an initiative of wealth creation policy and create these primes. And the prime is for them because they've got investment which they can borrow their investment and buy those big equipment to actually roll, for example, steel, to create the copper wire 8 millimeter, which is the foundation to make for that, and then from there distribute that down the third tier of the stream. And this is where either the private industry or the government can work together in order to start now making the wire, cables, wire, then from there it will move into the second tier to actually make the cables and so on and so forth, and move into now private partnership to be making the different, the connector, and that is small businesses. 2 people, 1 person, and so on. And this is a very large stream, a very large point of job creation. Very large. I hear now they're distributing CDF, but you cannot distribute CDF because it's very little. What they should have done perhaps is to make sure that the CDF is concentrated in locations by creating one industry which can help many people. If you give little money to somebody else, it will be just misused. And perhaps there must be rethink of that particular nature. And this will create jobs. And when we do this, this is what we're going to have. This is my proposed new smart business model. I'm proposing this. And I would like to present this to everybody in Zambia so they can start moving it. Here are the mines, local or foreign. Once they make their copper, they will go into what we call GRZ Limited, which is a company which belongs to the government of Zambia. Now, the government of Zambia will export that the usual way, and it does now, by sending those already to the markets which we sell. As you know, we sell copper in futures. They will sell them to all those countries, and I know a lot of it goes to Japan and Switzerland. Then they can also channel into downstream industry bureau. By doing this, when it's exported, that money will come back into Zambia. Not in London, not in US, not anywhere, to come back to Zambia. And Zambia then will pay off the mines for their effort. Okay? Bank of Zambia will pay the mines for their effort. Bank of Zambia will pay the private industry who have participated in the supply chain for their effort. And this is my new business model. What does this do? This is what it does. It will increase national revenue. Taxation and direct income will go by 100%. Job creations will be professional. And meritocracy. We need people who understand what they're doing. Otherwise, we'll never realize the dream. 1 million jobs can be created very easily. And that will reduce the ZRA refunds to 0%. Remember, we were wasting just over 1 billion of kwacha a year in refunds. We are reducing that to 0 by the model which I've just proposed, which is this model. Nothing will go out of Zambia without passing through the Zambian government company, which needs to be created. Perhaps ITC is not the one. We need to create a new company, because what ITC, is it ITC? Yes, what ITC is, to me, is not fit for purpose. ITC is supposed to be a think tank. At the moment, it's duplicating everything which other company does. Let me give you an example. ZCCM, it has got companies underneath it. There are board members there and the chairman. In ZCCM too, there are board members there and the chairman. It comes to ITC, the board members there and the chairman. Come on, all this money is wasted. Totally wasted. That money can be channeled somewhere else to do other business. What I want to do, I want to see ITC to go back to Ministry of Finance as a department as it used to be, and create what we call a think tank, which is going to give us technology. It's similar to what we have now. We have a Ministry of Science and Technology. I don't know by the way why they call it technology and science, because that does not, it's not compatible. So science and technology is really the ministry, because you have to do the science first before you get the technology. Okay? So science and technology is really the ministry. And perhaps that can be reversed. And the other point which I wanted to make about that, I've noticed that they've swept many of these technical colleges and all that into the Ministry of Science and Technology. They are not supposed to be there. They should go back to education. They should go back to education, because that's where they belong. That's where the continuity will be. You cannot be moving from one ministry to another in order to finish your education system. There's no continuity there. There's dislodgement of knowledge. And that's how it should be done. And I've already proposed that to the government to do that. So this here will not allow copper to be just worked anyhow. It will even be controlling all the revenue which is coming through its export. You remember what I told about all those offices in Africa? Yeah? In Mali, all those flags which I showed. So those offices which I showed are actually here and in this particular box here. And this is a government. So we are not allowing the mines to directly sell their product where we don't know they are going to. We are allowing, first of all, to control that and cutting off that wastage. That money we've been losing, to reduce it to 0%. If we reduce to 0%, we'll be getting them. And this is the future. And this is what we need to do. And this is Zambia of tomorrow. And we must start now. Good luck. Be loyal and responsible. Always add value to a problem. Thank you.